October 2018. A 39-year-old man in Melvindale, Michigan, a suburb of Detroit, doesn't show up for work. He doesn't call in late, and he doesn't answer his phone. His car is still in the parking lot of his apartment complex, and his door is unlocked, which is unusual because he's obsessive about locking the deadbolt. His family goes inside, and what they find in his bedroom makes it very, very clear that he is not okay.
2 days later, a maintenance worker in Ohio, 100 miles away, moves a discarded blue sleeping bag off the side of the highway, and inside it, he finds pieces of a human body.
Today, we're talking about David Carter, a devoted father, a hard worker, and a man described as the kind of person who made life better just by being in it. We're also talking about the woman police believe murdered him, dismembered him, vanished, and has been on the run ever since. I'm Amber.
And I'm Gina.
And this is Weird True Crime.
Before we get into what happened, and a lot happened, we want you to know who David was. David Darnell Carter Sr. was born on July 16th, 1979, in Michigan to his parents, Marie and Elton.
By 2018, he was 39 years old, living in Melvindale, working full-time at an automotive seating manufacturing plant, and running his own casual clothing line called Lavish Habits.
That's such a cool name.
It's pretty neat.
I love it. And David was, by every account, a genuinely wonderful person. His father, Elton, described him to Unsolved Mysteries as serious but also fun-loving. He was also very tall, to our short selves, at 6'4". David was handsome, athletic, and smart. His sister Tasia considered him her best friend. She called him for advice constantly. She described him as sweet, kind, and hardworking, and as someone who took pride in everything he did.
Tasia told Click on Detroit he was an amazing guy, an amazing father, amazing son. All he did was go to work, come home, and come to my parents' home. That was David. He wasn't flashy or complicated. He just showed up for his family, for his job, for his kid.
And speaking of his kid, the center of David's entire life was his son, DJ. David had dated a woman named Samia back in 1999, and when they eventually split, they stayed close and shared custody. When DJ was born, David ran out into the hospital hallway screaming, "I got a boy!" That is the purest thing I have ever heard.
DJ would sleep over at David's house every Sunday. David went to every single one of his school events and helped coach kids with the Melvindale Junior Football Club. They went bowling together. They went out to eat after games and played Madden together. DJ later told WXYZ, "He was somebody you can actually look up to. He taught me right from wrong." That's a kid who genuinely loved and respected his dad.
And then in March of 20, David started dating someone new, a woman named Tamera Renee Williams, who went by Tammy. He knew her from high school, and they had recently reconnected at a friend's birthday party. She had worked as a travel agent and was working as a phlebotomist at the time. Tammy had 2 kids of her own, but she and David were together pretty much every day. And at first, the relationship seemed great.
Here's the thing about Tammy, though. By September 2018, about 6 months into the relationship, it was becoming really apparent to David's friends and family that something was off. Tammy had essentially moved into his apartment. She was there every single day and rarely left.
And she had become extremely jealous and possessive. Like, we're not talking regular petty jealousy that can happen in newer relationships. We're talking about surveillance level possessiveness. Tammy freaked out when David was around any other woman, even his.
David's dad, Elton, told Unsolved Mysteries that whenever they had a family gathering, he noticed that Tammy would watch David. If he was talking to someone else, her eyes were on him the whole time. His sister Tasia noticed the same thing. The family could feel that David was trying to pull back, and Tammy was not having it.
And then, a few weeks before David was killed, he took a female cousin to a movie. Just a cousin. When they came back to his apartment, all 4 of his tires had been slashed. All 4. Tasia believes David figured Tammy was responsible because she was mad he'd gone somewhere with his cousin instead of her. That is delusional behavior.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
By late September, the family believed David was actively trying to end the relationship. And based on what happened next, it seems like Tammy knew it too. On the night of Friday, September 28th, 2018, David, Tammy, and his family were all at DJ's high school football game. But instead of sitting with David, Tammy chose to sit alone, away from everyone. The family thought that was strange. They assumed the couple had been fighting. It was later confirmed that they had gotten into an argument that day, though the reason is unknown.
Tasia pulled David aside at the game and asked if everything was okay with him and Tammy. He said she would be fine. They didn't speak to each other at all that evening, and Samia, David's ex, told Unsolved Mysteries that at one point she looked around the stands and noticed Tammy staring straight at her. She said it was like she had seen the devil. She can still see Tammy's face when she thinks about it.
The next night, Saturday, September 29th, David called Tasia around 10:30 p.m. to ask if she could edit a video from the football game. Tasia told Unsolved Mysteries she got the feeling he was alone. Before he got off the phone, David mentioned he had to be at work at 5 a.m. the next morning.
When 5 a.m. came and went on Sunday, September 30th, David didn't show up for his shift. He didn't call his boss or reach out to any coworkers. That was completely out of character. David had never no-called, no-showed before. He was responsible to a fault. And on top of that, it was a triple overtime day. He would not have missed that.
David's son DJ was supposed to go to David's for their weekly hangout on Sunday evening. But that afternoon, Samia received a text from David's number. Here's that text message, verbatim. Hey, I thought I was over this cold, but I'm sick as hell, throwing up and shitting. Got no voice. Well, actually it said hot instead of got. I don't think DJ should come over here tonight, end quote. Samia told Unsolved Mysteries she thought the text was odd, but she didn't think too much of it at the time.
DJ tried to call his dad and didn't get an answer. He got a follow-up text saying he was too sick to talk, but DJ mentioned he had some stuff at David's apartment he needed to grab, so he drove over. When he pulled up, he saw Tammy taking out the garbage. He said, "Hey." She looked right at him and said nothing. She threw the bag in the dumpster, then ran past him back to the apartment and locked the door. DJ thought that was very weird.
Tammy's attempt at locking DJ out was futile because he used his own key to get in. Tammy immediately came up to him and said, "Hey, DJ, what's going on?" He asked if his dad was home. She said he was out for a walk. DJ thought, wait, Dad is supposedly sick and he's out for a walk? He asked if she'd seen his phone charger. She hadn't. And as he walked through the apartment toward his bedroom, he started noticing things.
David's bedroom door was closed, which was unusual. Tammy then walked over and closed the bathroom door. Also unusual. When DJ got to his own room, his dad's clothes were laid out on his. That had never happened before. David always left his clothes on his own bed.
And then DJ went into his bathroom, and he saw rubber gloves and cleaning products that had never been there before. His brain told him, maybe they're just doing some cleaning. He grabbed his stuff. He left, and he went to his grandma's house.
And I want to point out that DJ was a teenager processing this in real time with no reason to believe that anything had happened to his dad. But he noticed every single difference. He clocked every detail. He just had no way of knowing what those details meant. And that just breaks my heart.
By Monday, October 1st, David still hadn't shown up to work. Tuesday morning, October 2nd, his coworkers texted Tasia directly to let her know. She knew immediately something was wrong. David would never no-show for 1 day, let alone 3. She called him repeatedly, no answer. She called Tammy. Tammy said she was at work and hadn't talked to David since Sunday.
Tasia found that suspicious, considering Tammy was with David virtually every single day for 6 months, and now she hadn't spoken to him in 3 days and wasn't concerned. Tasia called her husband Derek and asked him to meet her at David's apartment. When they got there, David's car was in the lot. The apartment door was unlocked. Yeah, that deadbolt David religiously locked, it was unlocked.
Tasia started panicking. They called the police. One officer arrived and went inside with Derek while Tasia called her father, Elton, and his ex, Samia. The officer and Derek came back out and said David wasn't inside. They noted the apartment was very clean. Tasia got the feeling that it wasn't being taken as seriously as it should have been.
When Elton and Samia arrived, they asked to go inside and look around. The officer said, sure, and waited outside while the family went in. And what they found in David's bedroom stopped them cold.
His bed wasn't made. David was a neat freak who always made his bed. His sheets were balled up in the closet, but the comforter was still on the bed. When they moved the comforter, they found a blood stain on the mattress and a hole in the stain. The bed had been moved. They could see the indentations in the carpet, and when they looked underneath, they found red stains and a bottle of hydrogen peroxide.
And then Elton, who is a former military police officer, looked at the bottom of the closet door, and he saw a bullet hole. He immediately told everyone not to touch anything and got them out of there.
When they told the officer what they'd found, the officer said something like, "It's probably a wine stain. There's no body inside, so it's probably nothing." And then the officer left.
Can you imagine? Like, if somebody says there's what looks like blood on this mattress and a bullet hole in it and a, thing over here on the closet, and you're just like, nah, it's nothing.
I don't know why we're ever still surprised at stuff like this.
I don't either. It's just the audacity of some of these officers. They're like, I can't be bothered with this right now. So, sorry, bye. It just boggles me every time. Every time. Well, unlike the unconcerned officer, the family knew something was wrong. They started calling everyone they could think of: friends, hospitals, morgues, jails, nothing. So they went to the Melvindale police directly, reported David missing, and the police went back to the apartment and began treating it as a crime scene.
On October 2nd and 3rd, detectives and crime lab technicians worked through David's apartment. Backhoes were brought in, dumpsters were checked, and the family couldn't stop thinking about Tammy, who, by the way, was still posting on social media and going to work as if her boyfriend of 6 months, that she was obsessed with, hadn't just vanished.
Yeah, this woman was extremely possessive of him and tracked his every move. But now she goes days without talking to him and shows no concern. Tasia called her and said, "Tell me where my brother is." Tammy said she didn't know. Tasia didn't believe her for a second. And Tammy never called David's family for updates. Here's where the story takes a wild turn. On the morning of October 1st, before the family even reported David missing, an Ohio Department of Transportation employee was mowing along the northbound lanes of I-7 near milepost 149 in Eagle Township, Ohio. That's about 10 miles south of Findlay, Ohio, which is basically a straight shot south of Detroit, around 100 miles away.
He noticed a discarded blue sleeping bag on the side of the highway. He went to move it out of the way of his mower. It was heavy. He opened it, and inside was a black plastic bag containing pieces of a human body. The Ohio Highway Patrol were called. A cadaver dog was brought in to search 5 miles in both directions. Nothing else was found, though.
The remains were transported to the coroner's office. They identified the pieces as belonging to the lower portion of a black male's body with a bulldog tattoo on one calf. Based on the victim's long inseam, they knew he was tall.
On October 3rd, Ohio authorities put out a bulletin about the remains. Melvindale police saw it, and the description matched David's. They asked Ohio to send them a photo of the tattoo. The Melvindale police then called Elton to come into the station. He brought Tasia's husband, Derek, for support. They showed Elton the photo. Elton told them David had a pit bull tattoo on his leg. Then he asked the chief, "Did you find David?" The chief said, "Yeah."
Derek drove back home knowing he had to tell Tasia. He said later that the whole drive, he couldn't stop thinking about the moment he would have to look at her face. When he pulled up, she said she could see it all over his face. He got out of the car and hugged her and told her David was gone. She said she felt like she'd been gut punched.
And then Tasia had to absorb something else. That someone had cut her brother up into pieces. She couldn't believe someone could do that to another person. And she kept thinking about her nephew, about DJ, about what this would do to him.
When DJ insisted on knowing what happened, Derek told him David had been found dead and that his body had been cut up. DJ walked away. He didn't want to look at anyone. He cried, and later he said he felt full of anger and sadness in that moment.
16, that is, you are well old enough to understand exactly what all of that meant.
Yeah.
That's rough.
It's awful. Nobody should go through that, let alone a kid.
Elton said that the hardest thing he had ever done in his life was telling David's mother, Marie, that her son was dead. He said it was like everything drained out of her. There was nothing he could do but hold her.
On October 5th, it was publicly announced that the remains belonged to David. His cause of death had not yet been determined. His father, Elton, told Fox 2 Detroit, "You never think that something like this can happen to you. You see it on TV, but you never think it is going to happen to your family. This is the hardest thing I've ever had to do." DJ said that every memory he had with his dad was always a good one, and that his dad always told him, just keep grinding, no matter what, just keep grinding.
On October 5th, police also took an unnamed person of interest into custody. It wouldn't be confirmed publicly for a while, but that person was Tammy. The family felt a flicker of hope.
On October 8th, a vigil was held at McGinty Park, the park where David had coached the junior football club. Hundreds of people showed, like hundreds and hundreds. Tasia told Fox 2 it was an amazing feeling. She said, "I knew my brother was loved, but I did not know it was like this." Elton said, "Whoever did this took the best of us, and it hurts."
But then, also on October 8th, Tammy was released from custody. The police didn't yet have enough evidence to hold her. They needed the rest of David's remains and a confirmed cause of death.
This reminds me of the Felicia Johnson case because it was basically the same exact circumstances. Like they knew, they just didn't have enough to hold him at the time. It's just so frustrating. On October 10th, investigators went back to I-75. Traffic was blocked so troopers and crime scene technicians could process the scene. That day, they found David's severed head along the highway, just a few miles north of where the sleeping bag had been found. According to Unsolved Mysteries, it was in a small black duffel bag wrapped in grocery bags.
On October 16th, additional remains were discovered near the North Baltimore exit on I-75, about 20 miles north of the original sleeping bag location. They found his upper torso and arms, wrapped in a comforter and placed inside a small, multicolored suitcase covered in bright flowers. David's entire body had now been recovered.
The coroner examined everything. David had a single gunshot wound below his left ear, near the back of his head. It exited through the top. The gun was fired at extremely close range, almost touching his head. There were no defensive wounds anywhere on his body, no signs of a struggle, nothing.
The coroner was surprised by that. David was 190 pounds, a large, physically capable man, and there was absolutely no evidence that he fought back. The coroner started to wonder if David was asleep or incapacitated when he was killed. An antihistamine was found in his bloodstream, which could have made him drowsy. The coroner believed his death was quick, though.
As for the dismemberment, the coroner theorized that David's killer dismembered him because of his size. At 6'4" and 190 pounds, it would have been nearly impossible to move him out of the apartment intact. The cuts were not made with a saw. The coroner believed it was done with an ordinary kitchen knife, and that it would have taken significant time.
Really, just let that sink in for a moment.
Based on the evidence and the timeline, here's what the investigators believe occurred. Tasia believes, and investigators agree, that David broke things off with Tammy on the night of the football game, September 28th. Whatever happened between them that day was the last straw. He was done, and Tammy could not accept it.
Then, on the night of Saturday, September 29th, Tammy, who had a key to David's apartment, let herself in while he was asleep. She shot him in the head. Then she purchased the sleeping bag, the suitcase, the duffel bag, and the other items his remains were found in. She dismembered his body with a kitchen knife. And she drove south on I-75, scattering David Carter, a father, a son, a brother, a friend, along the highway in pieces.
And then she sent text from his phone on Sunday morning to buy herself time. Samia said that when she read the text again later, she realized they weren't worded the way David would have worded them. But in the moment, she had no reason to think anything was wrong. None of them did.
On December 20th, 2018, a felony warrant was issued for Tamera Renee Williams for first-degree homicide, disinterment of a dead body, mutilation, tampering with evidence, and a felony firearm count. When police went to arrest her, she was gone. The U.S. Marshals stepped in and began leading a manhunt.
A $5,000 reward was made available for information leading to her arrest. Elton told In Pursuit with John Walsh that he was disappointed and angry that Tammy had been allowed to just walk free after being released in October. He was shocked the police hadn't kept track of her. Tasia said it's not fair that Tammy gets to live her life while David doesn't get to live his.
Authorities pieced together what they could about her movements. After being released from custody in October, Tammy made several phone calls to family members. After that, her family claims she stopped contacting them, though investigators don't believe that's the full story.
The next confirmed sighting of Tammy was in mid-October at a bar in Ann Arbor, Michigan, where she withdrew a substantial amount of cash from an ATM. Then she boarded a train to Penn Station in New York. She spent the night at the Neptune Motel in Brooklyn, paying in advance with $100 cash using her own driver's license to check in. And the next morning, she walked out of the hotel. After that, nothing. The trail went cold.
In late January 2019, the U.S. Marshals went public with their search for Tammy. They told the public she had worked in the medical field, was a world traveler, and had ties throughout the United States. They also revealed something interesting. Tammy was a member of the Order of the Eastern Star, a co-ed fraternal organization associated with the Freemasons. Authorities said they believed it was possible someone within that organization was helping her.
Ironically, the Order of the Eastern Star's stated mission is as followed: to make a positive difference in the world with charitable works, lasting friendships, and loving kindness to all mankind. Their values include honesty, dependability, trustworthiness, loyalty, charity, friendship, and kindness.
Values that Tammy allegedly does not have.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, groups like that come across very cultish and have a lot of their own problems, but it's really interesting that she would be associated with a group like that when she acted the way she did. Yeah. One U.S. Marshal described Tammy as a manipulative and evil person who thought this through and killed her boyfriend. Another said, quote, "What Tammy did to her boyfriend at the time, David, it's horrible. It's brutal. This is not a normal person doing this. She did it to somebody she loved. Who knows what she's going to do in the future to somebody else?" The U.S. Marshal said she should be considered armed and dangerous.
Elton went on television and addressed Tammy directly. He said, quote, "Tamera, you're out there. You know us. You know what you've done. Turn yourself in, baby. You can't keep running. Sooner or later, law enforcement will find you. Spare us and yourself and your family the grief of going through all of this. Turn yourself in, sweetheart." End quote.
The fact that he said it in such a kind way.
Mm-hmm. That's a testament of that entire family.
Mm-hmm. I don't think I could have been that nice about it.
I'm never that nice about anything.
No, I mean, honestly, same. In May of 2019, a U.S. Marshal told WXYZ, quote, "I can't sleep at night thinking about this case. We need to get her caught as soon as possible. This is one of the worst cases that I've seen, and I personally want this person in custody for the justice of the family." End quote.
By February 2020, more than a year after authorities had gone public with the search, Tammy was still at large. And by that time, the family had experienced another devastating loss. David's mother, Marie, had been diagnosed with cancer just 6 days before David was murdered. She was already sick. And then her son was killed, dismembered, and scattered down a highway.
Marie stopped going to her cancer treatments after David died. She passed away in January of 2020. Tasia believes Tammy is responsible for her mother's death as well as her brother's because, well, in a way, she is.
Elton told Fox 2 that he missed David coming through the door and asking, "What's going on? How you doing, Dad?" Tasia said, "No matter what, he always had us in here laughing, so it's real quiet now."
When Elton was asked what he'd say to anyone who might know where Tammy is, he said, quote, "Tell law enforcement where she is. Put yourselves in our place. If this was their brother, son, uncle, what would they want out of this?" End quote.
In September 2021, authorities revealed that Tammy's mother, Verdine Day, had been charged in federal court with bank and wire fraud. From December 2015 through September 2019, Verdine served as treasurer of her Detroit Firefighters Union. She was supposed to maintain expenses and provide receipts for every purchase. Instead, she stole more than $200,000 to fund lavish trips and personal expenses.
She had once been named Detroit Woman Firefighter of the Year. She had been a firefighter since 1990. And investigators believe she may have used those stolen funds to help her daughter stay on the run. A U.S. Marshal said, quote, "We believe wholeheartedly that she has provided her money and she provided her resources and may have financed her way to continue her life as a fugitive."
Around the same time, the U.S. Marshals held a press conference about the ongoing search for Tammy. A supervisory deputy marshal said, quote, "We are going to find you. We have been investigating this case for 3 years, and we've had very little cooperation at this point." They noted that people close to Tammy had not been forthcoming and that they believed those people knew exactly where she was.
They also noted that Tammy changes her appearance constantly. Wigs, different hair colors, and styles. One marshal said, quote, "She is a monster. She is one of those people that is a danger every minute she is out there."
Tasia told Click on Detroit, "It's been a nightmare for our family. We still haven't processed it. We were never able to see my brother in the casket. We were never able to touch him or anything like that. We just literally have absolutely nothing."
The reward was increased to $10,000. The Marshals called Tammy one of their top priorities in the country. Elton told WXY, quote, "I'm glad to see they haven't given up. It's been a long time since anybody has said anything about her whereabouts. I just pray that whoever is helping her will turn her in," end quote. And then he said something that really stuck with me. Quote, "To me, there is no such thing as closure. Right now, I just want justice for him," end quote. And we've heard that so many times.
Yep. In October 2022, Unsolved Mysteries on Netflix released an episode about David's murder and the search for Tammy. It brought renewed national attention to the case. The Carter family spoke again about what they'd lost.
Tasia said David's death left a hole in them that they will never be able to fill. She said, quote, "You know, you never know how much light somebody brings into a room until it's no longer there." She said her life has been dark without him. She misses their jokes and their fights and their talks. She misses everything.
Samia said there is not a day that goes by that she doesn't think of David. She thinks about DJ and all the things he has accomplished. She knows that if David were still here, he would be so proud.
At the time of the Unsolved Mysteries episode, DJ was attending Eastern Michigan University, playing football and majoring in business management. He had also taken over David's clothing business, Lavish Habits. DJ said that if he had a few minutes with his dad, he would ask him, "Are you proud of me and where I'm at?" And he would tell him that he loves him and misses him. That poor kid.
In September 2023, nearly 5 years after David was reported missing, the U.S. Marshals added Tamera Williams to their 15 Most Wanted Fugitives list. They said, quote, "The addition of Tamera Williams to the U.S. Marshals Service Top 15 Most Wanted demonstrates our commitment to apprehending Williams to answer for this brutal murder. We will pursue her for as long as it takes and stop at nothing to bring her to justice. We will be relentless in this endeavor," end quote.
The reward was increased to $25,000. Tamera Renee Williams is still a fugitive. She is 5'5", around 190 pounds, and has a large rose tattoo running from her shoulder down her left arm. She may have blonde or black hair. She is an experienced world traveler. She has known relatives in Atlanta and New York. She should be considered armed and dangerous.
If you know where Tammy is, if you've seen her, if someone in your life has mentioned her, if anything about this story sounds familiar, please reach out. The U.S. Marshals have a 24-hour tip line at 187, and you can also submit information through the USMS Tips app. As we said, there's a $25,000 reward for information leading to her arrest.
DJ is out there living his life, and he took over his dad's clothing line. He went to college. He played football. He kept grinding, just like his dad always told him to. But he is doing it all without his father. And he's doing it all wondering if the woman who took his dad away from him is ever going to face any consequences. And he deserves better.
David Darnell Carter Sr. was 39 years old. He was a devoted father, the kind of dad who went to every game, who coached kids on the sideline, who played Madden with his son and went bowling and called him just to check in. He was a hard worker. He was a businessman. He was his sister's best friend and his dad's pride and joy. He was funny and kind and tall and handsome, and he had a son who adored him, and he deserved to grow old.
We're going to link the Unsolved Mysteries episode in our show notes. It's on Netflix, and it's worth watching if you want to see the family speak for themselves. We'll also link the U.S. Marshals wanted poster for Tammy and the tip line. Please share this episode. The more people who know Tammy's face and her rose tattoo, the better chance that someone who has seen her comes forward.
David's family has been waiting since 2018. They've been through so much. The murder, the dismemberment, the manhunt, the loss of Marie. They are still waiting for justice. Let's get it for them.
What do you even say?
There's nothing you can say. It's just that let's get his family justice is it.
I just wonder if she's still even in the States. But if she had left the country, wouldn't her passport have been flagged if she's wanted? So she's got to be here somewhere.
You'd think.
Oh, and last but not least, we want to give a big shout out to Haley Gray for her research on David's case. Haley is an incredible advocate and human. We'll be back next week with another episode. Until then, stay safe.
And make good choices. Bye.
Bye.